We're live on Facebook. Here it is. It's all happening.
Great.
Uh,
Hello.
hello, Facebook friends and family. Of course, you know I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and welcome to Straight Talk with Scott and Trish and friends. And our friends tonight are two amazing souls. Jessica, Love Coach with Love Coach Academy, who's teaching a class tomorrow morning, and we're definitely going to want to talk about that.
And emotional
And,
resilience.
so what?
Yep, that's it. That's the one. We're doing it.
I did it real quick.
And a longtime friend of mine, Viraja Prema, who is also a brilliant coach. And so tonight we are going to talk about the relationship between healing what I call veils of past pain, and how that then is a critical step towards then really living an empowered life. And all three of these amazing women help people with that, help people with resolving and understanding our past in order to live in an empowered future. So with that, I'm going to actually put the spotlight on each of you for a minute, just to kind of give your opening thoughts about the topic. And of course, I'll start with my teaching partner and the woman I get to do this show with every Friday night, Trish.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome back to Straight Talk. Opening thoughts on healing yourself. You know how I feel about the word healing. I don't believe anyone's broken, so I don't really use the word healing. I'm just saying.
Thank you.
If you want to transform your beliefs about things that you've made decisions about, yes. But in the sense of the language that everyone else uses, to really transform what was to something new is really about self-awareness and finding self-sourcing and reliance, emotional reliance.
And just because, thank you for pointing out what you did about the idea about healing. So just taking that a step further, Trish, where do you go then when somebody says, God, I need to heal this, my father wound or my mother wound or what I've spent 3 years in therapy on? What would be your response?
My response isn't to make their language bad or wrong. Like it's the language that they resonate with. But it's definitely, it shows me the dichotomy that they're living in. It shows me so healing implies that there's something that's broken. So I'm like, oh, this belief that there's something broken, that you don't feel whole. So that's where we'll start, is loving the parts that feel broken or feel tight or feel like, instead of separating that. And that's my own thing. Being a rape survivor 2 times and having like massive childhood, I used to use that language. And I went to a workshop once, and this woman got in the middle of everyone and was like, I'm not effing healing because I'm not effing broken. And of all the things that I got out of that one stuck with me so deeply, because I was like, oh my God, I had believed that I needed to be healed and I couldn't be whole because of this crap that happened. And the way that I believed it, like the way that I took it on as my personality and my identity and ego. And I was like, I just don't feel like that's the truth, because I want to teach you how to love yourself there. And I want to love myself in the places that are just shadow, painful, those places.
Wow. Great. Just a great opening thought. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Beautiful. All three of you just blow me away. All right. I'm going to go to Jessica next, and then we'll go to Viraja. And I just want to say for a minute that I'm really snobby about who I get coaching from, because I really love Coach Academy, and I'm like older than everybody, and I'm like the master and all that nonsense. But you know who I go to for coaching? As I've been going to Jessica. She's a really, really amazing coach. She does this wonderful thing called brain spotting, which isn't always comfortable, but is very useful. So I just want to acknowledge that. So Jessica, I am now putting the spotlight on you. And yeah.
I feel like I may have been the phantom laugh behind you. And I'm not sure how the screen shows up for our viewers, but that was me laughing. So yes, I am deeply passionate about past pain. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about looking at it and going off of what Trish was talking about, integrating it, because integration to me sounds like you're taking the best gifts from it and we're leaving the rest behind, because usually there are gifts in terribly painful events, whether that's helping us find a strength that we didn't have before or helping us be something that we weren't before. There are things that are birthed out of past pain, and it's not comfortable. And I think that and if we can integrate the gifts and let go and forgive the challenges, it gives us an opportunity to actually be in the present moment. So what I understand about the brain is that our brain stem and our limbic system will hold on to trauma and it will encapsulate it to protect itself. And so those sort of unconscious behavior or patterns will inform present behavior. And that's why we do this, Trish, I'm going to say it, I'm so sorry, healing work. But that's why we do it, right? Is
like I want you guys can use the word healing.
Oh no,
we're going to use it. Do whatever you want.
I love that you're passionate about languaging, and it's phenomenal. I'm mainly just teasing. So, okay, the reason I'm so passionate about healing is not because, when we go through it, it's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just ready and you just snap into it. But, it's the freedom that we have on the other side. That's what I'm interested in. I want to advocate for people's best selves. I want to advocate for their best version of self, let's just say, which means that they're at choice in the way that they behave, the way that I behave. I want to be at choice the way I behave. And so that's really what the gift that I want to bring to the table through the brain spotting and through working with the beautiful people that I get to work with. So it's my little take.
It's a good take. More to come. And then there was Viraja. And, actually the topic of tonight kind of evolved out of Viraja reached out and she's doing some really wonderful work in the world. And I've actually known Viraja, I think we've known each other at least 10 years now, yeah? You were 16, I think, when I met you? No. But Viraja's doing really powerful work in the world, and she's on the empowerment side of things. And so I thought, well, knowing the work that you do, Jessica, and knowing the work that she's doing, I thought, wow, okay, here we go. Let's really take a look at the relationship between honoring our past, managing our past, working on our past, and how that relates to empowering ourselves in present time. So I'm now going to put the spotlight on you, Viraj, and please tell us about what you're up to and what you're doing. And welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I love being in this community and in this group of amazing beings. Thank you for having me here. It just delights my heart of all of these different sources that are helping with open the heart, remember the love that we are. And I really, really love when we can come together in this community. And Scott, thank you for being a trailblazer in all the ways that you are for us to really remember who we are, and not only individually, but as a collective. Yeah, very, very, very powerful to be part of that with you. And yes, for over 10 years. So thank you. So I am really sourcing from a lot of my own journey, and also very personally and interpersonally and transpersonally, universally. So what feels like to me is that there's a lot of people, but I'm really, as I've dropped more into the woman that I am and the messenger that I can be. I really feel like, my heart wants to reach out to other women's hearts, the ones that have had disappointments, pain, betrayals, missed opportunities, and they are experiencing this like loss of their self, this lack of connection to who they are, this loss of power, and the life force that they are is no longer accessible to them for many number of reasons. Those are possible reasons, and they have either consciously or unconsciously closed their heart, protected themselves, withdrawn, gone into certain patterns to make things work and to do what we got to do and show up. And we may know women like that have had this experience or that are operating this way, and very commonly these women are like, it's not just a one-time occurrence. It actually repeats itself, where it begins to snowball in their life, and in their effect in the world is then lessened and lessened, and they become more isolated and separate. And you may know, like, isolation is one of the major, health crises that we have, like, even before the pandemic, of feeling very disconnected and alone, and that loss of connection. And that's on a very, very like simple, person to person, or also very universal matter, any of those ways. So the way in which I want to help people is like, not just like addressing those patterns, which I do help them get to the root, like the tap root. And when we get to that place, it's like a liberation, kind of like what Trish was saying. It's like, what, like, this has never gone anywhere. I have always been this power. I have always been this light. I've always been this love. I just didn't remember or didn't know, or I had these things in the way. So addressing the blocks and the patterns and the unknown that wasn't known, and bringing it known, and integrating that and healing that in a way that's through the loving, through the accepting, through the integrating of that. And then through that, we get to love and lead with more of our true self, more of our power, more of our essence, and really be living what we came here to be doing. And that is what I love doing, and what I love seeing that we're all doing in our own ways. And my wish is that, all of humanity can have this remembrance. And so these are some of the pathways that I found really powerful for my gifts and offerings.
So let's just for a moment, a question for you, because it really struck a chord when you talk about how the repeating of patterns. And so often, as a coach, I just really, of course, we're all have learned many, many things as coaches. And one is, oh, wow, human beings, we are such creatures of habit and pattern. And, especially when it comes, it seems like loss of love, when we don't receive love, whether it's from mommy or daddy or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a husband or a wife, when we don't receive love and we have this deep pain, it so often creates, oh, well, that's the way the world treats me, or that's the way it's going to be. And then the pattern repeats. So I'll start with Viraja, but then if either of you, if Trisha or Jessica want to add, how do we change that pattern? And what are some of the ways that maybe you've either changed it in your own life or with your clients?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question. And I also want to hear the different approaches, because there's so many different types of person that we have different pathways to really uncover that and shift that. And that thus we have all these modalities that are now available to us, or that are new or remembering from ancient technologies. So one of the ways that I look at this is that there are different pathways of access. So there's different access to our own connection with to connection and love, in essence. So those pathways that are like to ourself, like within ourself to ourself, or ourself to other, and that in reverse, the other to us, or us to the universe, God, divine, all that is, and that also back to us. So part of the work that I do is help like feel into that with that being, like, where are the compromised flows? And then when we get more of a sense of that, it's like, okay, what's to be revealed here, and how can that be met? Because there's really, it's like we are ultimately connected to all that is. And however, in this human experience, we're having all of these different contrasts to that, so that we have our own special formula that our being came here to learn and to unravel and awaken. So it's like finding where and how that is woven for that person, and what's emerging now that's ready to be more integrated and more connected with and more whole. So personally, I have had a tremendous amount of healing in the last 5 years, particularly around attachment wounds and attachment healing. Yeah. So that is, that was outside of my doing my own personal work, which I had already been doing for 15, 20 years. I've been doing a lot of deep personal work on myself and my relationship with myself, and opening up to more of my access to the divine. But there was this underlying part, or many layers underneath my exchange with others, which was actually occupying a lot of my energy, because I was like, there's, when there's something off, or like going there all the time, it's like, what, I'm trying to figure this out. But until it becomes conscious, it's like, it's just kind of the repeating pattern. So part of my repeating pattern was that I would get into relationship dynamics, and I would be, I was not conscious of my anxious attachment style. So I was responding and trying to grasp, and I was over merging, and I was like, overcompensating, and so many different things that was not resulting in me feeling connected, like truly connected in the way that I'm now knowing, and I'm constantly deepening that. Yeah. So doing some attachment healing work, then, and the self, me to another, and then to me, like those pathways that we need on a biological level, because that's the only way as humans we're sure that we're going to survive. It's so important. I'm guessing you guys have probably already talked about this. Yeah, it's like, no, oh wow, it's so good, so important. So as I started learning different
on this show today,
yay, we're talking about it. Yay, good. As I learned some modalities and had that part of me really truly be met in a very attuned, present, like I'm not going anywhere kind of way, there was this like, whew, there's this softening and a continual like checking initially. That part of me is like, are you sure? Are you really there? Are you sure? Like, I don't trust it. That part of my personal pattern of being anxious is like, doesn't matter what you say or how many times, I'm still not going to totally believe it. Like that part of me, because it didn't get what it needed way back when, of feeling like, okay, this is solid. It's secure. It's not going anywhere. And because I have that, my nervous system can stay and rest in relaxation. Because that is here enough, my parasympathetic nervous system can be primary. And I can be easeful and relaxed. And to layer that onto more of like the universal connection, it's like, if we are in fight or flight, we're concerned about our survival. So say going on at the attachment conversation, it's like if we weren't bonded to and responded to when we were younger in a way that helped us be relaxed, then we're going to be in this fight or flight, like, is everything okay? Do I need to do something? And that occupies our time, energy, focus, attention on this very 3D world survival. And which is awesome. We need that. And we thank God we have all of this like eons and eons of things that have happened in order for our beings, our humanity to exist as it is. And if we're always in that, we're not going to really have the resources to really access and open and tap in to more higher consciousness, to more of the universal consciousness and that flow. So when we get this, like these other parts of the puzzle, the flow chart connected with, and it creates the impact in our body, heart, mind, spirit of like, oh, wait, here I am. Mm-hmm. Here I am. And I'm here in these relational flows in the way that I can find myself this much because somebody has been able to be there with me, and it's helped my system co-regulate and get into this open, natural flow of well-being. And then from that place, well, there's so much that's available. It's like those old patterns are just unwind, they dissolve, they shift, they transform. And also we also can like then increase our reach of what's possible. We can then move more into like these other flows. And then that informs us. It's like it's outside of those other constructs of mind. It's kind of new information just comes in, and then that becomes the new way.
Wow. I'm very eager to hear like what Trish and Jessica have to say about kind of in response or following through on that. One quick that I just want to put in there is I want to acknowledge for anybody watching that if you're still in a place where you live pretty consistently in a low-grade state of anxiety, a low-grade state of vigilance, there's nothing wrong with you. It's so remarkably common. And Viraja pointed to it. If you grew up with an alcoholic parent, or you grew up where there was danger, and you always had to have a certain state of vigilance, that becomes a way of being in that constant, and it may be low grade, but that constant state of vigilance to make sure that you're safe. And so if that is the case for you, a lot of compassion and empathy. And that's where working with someone like Viraja or Trish or Jessica can be really valuable, because they have the tools to have the compassion for your life up to this point and to help you change your relationship to your nervous system so that you don't have to stay hypervigilant anymore. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I'd love to hear from Trish or Jessica, where you want to go next, either in response to what Viraja shared or anything, because all of you are brilliant. So, Jessica, Trish pointed to you.
I saw that. Viraja, thank you so much for sharing so deeply about your process with attachment. And I think I can definitely relate to a lot of the things that you were saying. And as you were speaking, there were a few things that came out that sort of prompted insight. But often when I think, I heard you describing the relationship to self, the relationship to divine, the relationship to healing attachment through healing the relationship to self and the divine, and then to other. For me, because I work with the brain and I also am fascinated with mycelia, and I often think of these single cells, these networks that connect us to all things. I've just had this beautiful visual of like you like having your core activated and connected down and rooted down to the earth, and then like spreading out to the divine, whatever that means, and just connected to all things. And I think for me, it was lovely and fun and special. So I took that. So I took some little notes here. I just, one of the things that you said that I really liked is that until it becomes conscious, it just becomes a repeating pattern. And I think that we all know what that feels like. Like, I can remember years ago, my best friend being like, I don't understand why you are meeting these men. Like, you don't seem this effed up. And I was like, she didn't shorten that word, just, I know it's straight talk. But so there's so many situations where that happens where it's just like, why is this happening again? And I really do think that whether you believe in God or divine or just you as self, and it's just your brain and your nervous system relating to itself, I really do feel like it's something raising its hand and saying like, hey, look at this, check this out. Like, this feels out of control. This feels not in alignment. This feels uncomfortable. Like, look a little bit deeper. What's here? And so for me, I love pattern finding. Like it's one of my favorite things. And so I hear at a deep level, but it can be so frustrating when we don't know why this stuff just keeps happening. It's like, and especially, sometimes we've been in therapy for years and it's just like, why can't I just change my behaviors? So one of the things, a couple of things come up for me. And the first one is that I think that there are a lot of things that we can do on our own. And one of the first things that comes to mind that has changed my life significantly is Byron Katie's work and just asking the question, what else can be true here? Like, I don't know that this is true. What else could be true? And just really dropping into that, that space between the conscious and the unconscious when you're really like allowing a flow and allowing a different level of honesty and a suspension of what we already believe to be true about ourselves and the world around us. So, and I think, another word for that is curiosity. But it's sometimes very difficult to be in curiosity when we are too entrenched in patterns. We might think we're being curious and thinking outside of the box. We're still defined by the box at that point. So I think using things like Byron Katie's work can help to alleviate that on our own. The second thing is, and I think this is huge, and Viraja, thank you you said something similar but being witnessed is a huge part of coming into integration. And this is something that I've just been learning, even though I've been doing coaching for a while. It's actually a huge piece to have someone watch us as we are struggling and then reflect back a mirror of what we are doing right. And also what we can, edge towards, just a healthy reflection. It builds confidence and it helps to draw that knowledge into a somatic place within ourselves, which is deeper. Like being seen, even over Zoom, is a much deeper experience than only practicing alone. I think that journaling can be a really great stand-in because we witness ourselves in a different way sometimes. So those are two of the things. I mean, I'm a huge advocate for the work that I do. I love brain spotting so much. Like, it's just like, sometimes it takes a little time, and unplug stuff from the brainstem and the limbic system. Like, it's freaking amazing. And it's almost like the door to patterns is just like understood and like gently closed. It's not that it never existed, but it's integrated in a different way. We can use it as a power instead of pain. And it might also bring other stuff. I think when we're on an evolutionary path, these things happen, right? We clear out one level and then there's a deeper awareness of what's underneath. It happens. And, we get to be closer to ourselves. And each time we show up for ourselves, I don't know, I just feel like the angels sing. I'm just so proud of how brave we all are, when we actually do this work. It's amazing.
Beautiful. Trish.
Yeah. It sounds like we're all in a very similar alignment in our work. Different languaging, some of us, and some of us the same languaging. Attachment style, all of the things are, there's just like so much, right? Let me, I'm just taking it all in, Viraja and Jessica, and just really feeling into their work and their truth. I love to work with the places where we've created patterning in the nonverbal. And so through childhood, you've developed, about the time when you're 3, you've developed how to relate to other people, how to relate to the opposite sex. If your parents are in a heterosexual relationship, you've already developed relationship skills, right? And this is all about the time when you're learning language. And what I really truly understand is that the people who teach you language is how you're going to think, right? So my mom taught me language And that's how I relate to the world. And I can see some of her stories in my head. Like, and I'm curious if you ladies, and Scott, if you all can hear your parental stories. And so you can track some stories back, not just in your body, but in your mind. And I what I love about both Viraj's work, how I understand it, is really looking back through the attachment styles and being able to be more, to find co-regulation and to resource yourself. And Jessica's work around really shifting the neuro pathways with light and attention, and really like finding that there. I mean, I guess I don't know your works, but I'm really feeling that place of really deep acknowledgement of one's own patterning and one's own perspective comes from the places that we have created neural pathways through our experiences and our trauma, right? The things that have helped me most in my experience is something called open floor, which is body movement, like 5 rhythms dance meets gestalt. And because there's a lot of places where there's some stories that I made up pre-verbal, that the only way to really experience them or to share them is to be witnessed in a triad or in a dyad by someone else, and expressing out in a way that doesn't use a language that I was taught, right? My work primarily focuses on embodiment practices and really dissecting or dissolving the codependent patterning. So when you start to listen for the places where you abandon yourself and not living in your truth, so the places of confusion, the places of self-mistrust, like that for me is the place that I can offer people, like, hey, let's track it back a little bit, like keep tracking it back, and can we love and accept ourselves in those places? Can we just be okay, or love, or find acceptance for not only the people involved, but ourselves for not being able to protect ourselves, and find the right way to communicate, right? So that's just a little bit. Trying to wrap all that up. It was just so good, and I don't want to take up too much time. I want to.
You know, I just want to riff for a moment on the power of the word and the power of the experience of acceptance. You know, and if I had a minute to deliver a message to the world, that's what it would be. Is let's all practice radical acceptance of our past, of who we are, of the people in our world. It's that radical acceptance that is so essential for us to really build a positive foundation. And so, you know, thank you for saying that. And radical acceptance doesn't mean condoning ongoing hurtful behavior, but we're so hard on ourselves, and then we're so hard on others, and then everybody's in a constant state of reptile brain because we're all defending ourselves from our own thoughts, right? I just recently learned that according to the people that study this stuff, 97% of the time that we're in reptile brain, it has nothing to do with anything happening outside of us. It is our own thoughts. It's our own interpretation. Viraja looked at me funny. Trish didn't return my call as quickly. Jessica, I sent her 3 emojis and she only sent me back 2 emojis, right? It's like, whatever it is, you know, it's like, and then we create these interpretations. She doesn't really love me. She doesn't really care. And we're triggering our own reptile brain from our own interpretations of the world. And so just radical acceptance. And as I'm going to say is, if you think about, you know, the great spiritual teachers, what are they teaching? Presence. Being fully present to what is and not tripping on the past, tripping on the future, but being fully present with what is, which can include discomfort. It can include deep sadness. It can include uncomfortable emotions. Being fully in present time is just so important. And again, we get to present time through acceptance. But when we're not in acceptance, we're still tripping on the past or worrying about the future. And Trish raised her hand.
Well, I wanted to give a little story, like two little stories about this, just because it happened just today for me. So for the who else on this panel has read The Body Keeps the Score?
Say it again.
Score a little bit. Well, I mean, we all, I think, understand that regardless of, you can logically and rationally have like, well, this isn't happening, and then there's a whole experience in your body, especially if you have big scary wounding in your childhood or in your life, and it lives in your body. Sometimes you're triggered and your body's like freaking out and you're like, oh shit, I know that I'm safe right now theoretically, but my body's like and I'm trembling and I'm screaming and I'm crying and I'm like irrational on the whole thing. So here's an example of you can be in the present, but it's about the way that you self-source and the way that you communicate about what's going on. So I have a friend and I didn't respond to a message and I left her on red. And she has some deep stuff going on where it triggered some childhood wounding. And I didn't mean to. I was sick last week. I had 6 shows. Like, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. And I would, of course, have responded. And I had no idea that it would trigger her so deeply. Mm-hmm. So in the conversation, what she shared, I could have taken it on as like, oh my God, I'm such a bad person. I can't believe that this happened. I'm, I could have taken it so many ways, but what I chose to do is I showed up in compassion and I heard her. I just heard I just witnessed her, accepted that that was the experience that she had. I took ownership, acknowledged where she was at, and then I got to share with her what was up for me that week. And of course, we got into co-regulation, we got into resonance, she felt seen and heard, and it deepened our relationship because she was able to share so vulnerably. And on a private note, like for me personally, last week I got into a huge trigger. Like, I had super abusive relationship where my partner and I, we both gaslighted the shit out of each other. Let's just get real about it. Like, there was a place where he would constantly tell me that what was experiencing in my life or how I was experiencing it wasn't happening. And that I felt like, oh my God, I'm crazy. Like, you're making this shit up, is what he would say. And I'm like, oh my God. So I had this experience and I was like, I'm done with this experience. I've gone through therapy. I've done coaching. I've done all these things. And totally random, I had an experience with my lover who he shared, he's like, no, well, nothing's happening. He wasn't invalidating my experience, but you better believe that tripped my fucking body in a way that was like, are you saying that I'm making this all up in my head? And I leapt from the couch. I leapt and I was standing there like this. And I was like, if you are going to invalidate my feelings and my reality right now, I'm walking the fuck out. And he was like, oh, I recognize that there's something serious going on and I really want to know what's going on for you. And he dropped in. He listened to me. I was like trembling and, I was just like full on trigger. And he just dropped in, put his hand on my lap. We breathed together and we got into co-regulation. So regardless of me knowing, wow, this is not actually happening and he's not being a dickbag. Sorry, Scott, this one's like so wild today. I'm feeling some sort of way. That, like, regardless of my own, like, rational, like, this isn't happening, my body was totally on another level.
Yeah.
So, taking it to the girls. Ladies.
Raja. Thoughts?
I'm actually thinking like, what's a personal share I could share? Like I've really loved Trisha and Jessica's shares. So I've been listening with that ear, and definitely agree with Trisha about how there's just so much stored in our body that we're like, I say every cell is like a little hard drive. It's across time, it's stored in there. And I really loved how Trish was saying, like working with the pre-verbal, there's even like the precognitive, like what we have absorbed about life and our surroundings and the happenings. Like I had a near-death experience about 4 years ago. I had a traumatic brain injury after falling off a galloping horse, and that was I call it a divine appointment. It was definitely a part of my spiritual awakening. And I then was in a period of, about a year where my myelin sheaths, like my nervous system couldn't filter like I had been used to, or I had been how I had adapted to life. And I have this sense of like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to be a newborn, where there's just so much content, so many signals, and so much information coming in. It was like just wow, like my compassion for all of us, for like this sensitivity of being in this body, and then what we learn and develop over time, and how we do that. Like I had a friend who is a somatic experiencing practitioner, and she would come sit with me after my concussion, well, went in the recovery, and she'd be like, no, like slow down. Trish might appreciate this too. It's like, no, slow down. And when I did, I was like, oh my God, like there was so many feelings, so many sensations. I know, it's like, oh my God, I had no idea. I felt like, when you skip a rock across the water and goes, I feel like that's what I had been doing for decades in my own system. And I had no freaking clue. Like that's how I had been compensating, or I had been like, as Scott was talking about, like presence, like I had like, like kind of tiptoed, just hopped, skipped through life. And I mean, albeit like quite successfully in some regards. However, my own awareness of myself, what I really felt, and what my real truth was, what my needs were, and my even like being able to track and process and clear what was there. Like it was like, I know it was like, wow, I'm gonna say like a awakening. It woke me up to so much about being in the body. And then also like how much information we're taking in so young, without the cognitive capacity yet to understand it, to make sense of it, to do something with it. And in one regard, I think, well, it's probably like smart, like the design of things. Like if we like, it's just so much. It's like to space it out in our development kind of makes sense on one regard, but also it's like, oh, like that's still in us. So what and how we have interpreted that, or what it was that we were around, is absolutely informing how we live through our whole life, until if and when and how we actually do kind of begin to like metabolize it, digest it, and clear it. Mm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You three are amazing. I'm enjoying this a lot. I'm going to share a brief story about something I learned about the animal body from my own personal experience. A few years ago, I was in a relationship living with someone who was very polyamorous, and it really wasn't where I was at, but everything else in the relationship was really strong and good, and mentally intellectually and spiritually, I was really into practicing compersion. Okay, when she's enjoying other people and she'll bring the love back to me, and I intellectually kind of was like in that place authentically. And there was a Sunday that we taught a class together and went really well. And we were in separate cars, we're driving home, and she decided to stop and see a lover. And it wasn't even a sexual thing. She just stopped and had lunch with him. And I stopped at Costco to do shopping for us when I get the text that she's with her lover having tea. And I lost it. My animal body took over. And I literally was shaking so strongly at Costco. I really remember to this day, can I make it through the cash register? Because I already had a cart full of shit, right? And it's like, can I even make it through the cash register? I made it through the cash register. I got to my car. It took me an hour and a half to calm down before I felt that I was even safe to drive. And it taught me in a very personal way that we have an animal body, and our animal body has its own intelligence. It has its own reality. And and here I am, a relationship coach, but I didn't really realize the power of our animal body and how it is sometimes very separate from our intellectual self, our spiritual self, our cognitive self. So, I just wanted to toss that out there as we're talking about the different parts of ourselves and the different parts of ourselves that inform us. And ever since that point, I've really tried to be more connected to my animal body, listening to my animal body, because my mental body and then my compassion self had pretty much always run the show. And for me, even in my 60s, I'm learning to listen more to the animal body. So I just wanted to toss that in there.
Mhm.
Jess.
I just freaking love what's happening here. And I love all of the stories. And thank you guys for going so deep and being so present here. Like, I can just feel each of you so much. So I mean, God, I know I can deeply relate to my neocortex, all of this conscious thought, those great flipping ideas that I'm so proud of. I can really relate to getting super triggered and dropping right out of the neocortex and right down into the limbic system and into the brainstem and acting from there. I can relate to, I've definitely been learning through healing my attachment style. And I definitely relate to being an anxious attacher. And oh my goodness, like when relationships don't feel good, like for me, my body will drop right back into that animal state of, shaking or not feeling like I'm in control of the skills that I know how to use. And I think that that's like actually for me, and I would say most of the people that I work with too, because I tend to work with like intuitive empaths like myself, right? Like there's this sense of, good Lord, what the F just happened? Like I should be okay. And so there's this like natural judgment that comes in. I mean, not that it should be natural or it needs to be natural, but there's this state of like, if I shame myself, maybe this won't happen again.
Mm.
If I shame myself, then maybe I can protect my partner from the angry that just came out all over him. Or like, maybe I can protect myself because my nervous system, when I go to this place, just feels like absolute crap. Like I'm shaking. It takes me like a day to recover. I mean, I'm different now, but it's because I've been able to show up and do the work. But I relate so deeply to the triggers that just can exist and how hard it is, and how hard it is for us to love ourselves, or for me to love myself in that place. I mean, when you talk about radical acceptance, Scott, I get it. I get it on a fundamental level of why it's so hard, because we all have parts of ourselves that we are not proud of. Like each one of us. It doesn't matter, like, and I think that because these things are not things that most of us have the opportunity to talk about super openly, we all think that we're alone on this island, that we should just like hate ourselves into being a better person. And it's just not true. But you know, it does take vulnerability and trust. I mean, we should all expect vulnerability and trust before we share these deep parts of ourselves, because they should be contained and loved in safe places. And man, I get it. I get it. But and actually this is great and wonderful, but the class that I'm teaching tomorrow morning, it has a lot to do, that emotional resilience. I'm teaching a class on emotional resilience, but it has a lot to do with how we feel about how we feel. I mean, it like these ideas are actually quite simple. Like, how do we live better? If we hate ourselves the first minute, we make a decision to think something different in the second minute. And then we keep practicing that. And then sometimes we fail, but over time it gets a little bit easier. And if we get help, it gets a lot easier. So and I'm moved deeply by the depth of this show today, and the depth of each of you, and how much passion and beauty really exists here.
Thank you. Yeah, we're actually getting a lot of comments of people saying, "Oh my God, this is an amazing show. Thank you so much." So I want to acknowledge all of you who are saying that, and certainly want to hear more thoughts, comments. Thank you, Halima, in our Zoom room. You know, Jessica did mention she's teaching a class tomorrow, and it's part of a 10-week course that started 3 weeks ago, taught by different love coaches. And I'm really proud of what people have been doing. Last week, Trish taught, and she was amazing. So I put in the Zoom room, and I'm going to go to Facebook when one of you speaks in a moment. And then I'll post the link on Facebook also. If you go to my profile page, you'll see it under us, and I'll put it there, where people can register. And you can come in for just Jessica's class tomorrow if you want, or you can register for all 10 classes. Now, I recognize 3 of the classes already happened, but guess what? They're all recorded, and we will send you the YouTube link for the recordings. And these are our amazing love coaches sharing the greatest wisdom. So the class tomorrow is Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time. I will be there, and Jessica's teaching, but a lot of the love coaches come and we learn from each other. And so I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. So I just wanted to put that out there. And wherever you all want to go next, great. But one possible place to go, in addition to whatever your fingers have in mind, is how do we manage shame? You know, Jessica talked about shame, and I'd love for us to address that before we finish tonight, is, you know, different ways of managing shame. So Trish has been giving me the finger. So
this is just really brief, something that I wanted to tap on what Jessica said. I just want to say, you can't hate yourself into self-love. I mean, you can try, and believe me, I've tried. It's really hard, that path, but you can try. Don't let me stop you. But if you're not really interested in that, I'm sure that I know at least 3 other people besides myself that can help you from just this platform. What I love about this conversation is just to remind everybody that triggers happen and upsets happen. And the way that we can communicate and love ourselves and each other through it is by learning compassionate communication, loving skills. We can learn these skills and accept that, you know, sometimes shit hits the fan. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I'm like hanging out with Baraj, and she says this one particular thing that I'm like, and it's the way that I choose to show up and the way she chooses to show up in that place. that brings us either together or creates more friction, right? And then the last thing I wanted to say, that again, it is easier to make the changes from a place of loving self-acceptance than it is from self-hate. Here, I know Viraja wanted to say something.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Trish. Yeah, I love the pointers that everyone is offering. And like, as we say to others, we say to ourselves, like, oh my gosh, this stuff happens. And we all get triggered. Like, I get triggered. We can go into self-hate, shame, questioning, fear, doubt, a spiral. Hopefully the spiral, if we go down, doesn't go like 500 turns down. Like maybe at one point in our life it does, but it's like, oh, like recognizing how we're feeling and then making new choices. I wanted to mention something that I feel like kind of speaks and kind of weaves a thread between a lot of the topics we were talking about. So I was hearing like a conversation about patterns and like shifting patterns and embodiment and early imprints and information in our systems, and then our animal body, and then emotions and like how we feel about the emotions, or is it okay to have that emotion? So like what I was talking about, like the beginning of life and those imprints, precognitive. And then if we kind of wanted to go kind of more to the opposite end of our developmental scale, which is kind of more for like higher level thinking. And have you guys ever noticed a part of yourself that's like really sure it knows how it should be? It's like knows what the rule should be. It knows like what, like if like all the things. It's like, it's right or it's wrong, and it really knows. Like it can judge. It's really fast. It's really like black or white at times. It's like intense. So that if we have that happening, which it's often that we do, it can like be like, nope, that emotion's not okay. Or no, you can't feel that. or damn it, that person combs their hair that way. I can't get close to them. It's like, no. Yeah. What? Yeah. So it's this like, and it could be a small degree of our experience, or it could be a larger degree of our experience, depending on what our, many things. Yeah. Like our parents, our society, our religion, our, what influences we had. And underneath that, it's essentially like, how loved and accepted are we, to be our own unique selves. So when we haven't had the spaciousness and the acceptance, the radical acceptance for being who we are and how we are, and the opportunity to discover and explore what life is like for us or for other people, and that everyone can have their own experience, there's this process that can come online. And some people call it the rigid process. So the rigid process is like, it's like this, it's not like this. Off with your head. Like, off with you. Yeah. So if that rigid process is super active in you, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to make change. It's probably going to be pretty darn difficult to practice radical acceptance or have your own unique, authentic experience of what is arising in the moment. Because it's more likely that rigid process is using some set of rules that it picked up somehow, some way. It's judging and getting on your experience. So, and then that you can notice it in the body by like being really kind of stiff and tense and kind of jerky and kind of robot-like mechanical. That tends to be when there's a rigid process really activated. Yeah. So be tracking your own rigid process and bring it some love. And that part is like, ooh, it's been trying really, really hard to get it right. Because if it got it right enough, it might be accepted and loved for who it is. Yeah.
You know, something that's wonderful about all three of you is obviously you're all sharing really wise information, but I love the faces that all three of you make. You all have like you're very theatrical. You know, Jessica's laugh, and you know Viraja's theatricality. Now I've seen Viraja on stage. She's actually a great actress and quite a comedian. But really, I appreciate how theatrical you all are, and within that theatricality, it's just how perfectly human. You know, all three of you have that compassionate understanding of just the human experience, you know, and how perfectly human we all are, you know. And, you know, so I'm just really appreciating that, your theatricality, your compassion, as well as your wisdom. And so are a lot of the people who are watching, really enjoying this. How do we manage shame? Let's tackle that and then we'll wrap up. How do we manage shame? Jessica.
Let's see. I have some notes here. I think Trish had a really good idea about in relationship. You said something like, when we have a trigger and we come together with another person who we have had the trigger with, we can either deal with it in a way that brings us closer together or pushes us farther apart. And triggers usually do that. That's like a deciding point. Not that it will be that one way or the other forever, but you get to kind of choose, hopefully. I mean, it's dependent on both people, right? But there's an intent and a willingness to show up. And I would argue that shame is one thing that we can meet in ourselves in a similar way. So there's a part of us that feels shamed. And then there's our higher functioning that's watching the shame and wants to react to it. So we have the opportunity in that moment to really dive into a really significant shame spiral, which I have definitely done in my life. So like, it might look something like this. Difficult thing happened. Oh my God, Jessica, you just said that out loud. Are you flipping kidding me right now? Do you know what they think about you right now? They think you're an idiot. That's what's going on. You know better. Why didn't you just say there's like 17,000 other things that you could have said in that moment? So boom, 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 just like hitting. So that's like mean inner voice Jess to a situation that she probably didn't want to happen in the first place. So another option might be, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. I feel really embarrassed. Oh my God. Okay. And then the other voice comes in and is like, yeah, this feels super uncomfortable right now.
Mm.
I wonder what you need right now to feel a little bit better. You might not be able to get to 100% in this moment in time, but maybe there's something you could do that would be like a slight improvement. And then there's a conversation, there's a dialogue of managing the pain that's already happening. We're not going to take it away by making it worse. But I would argue that most solutions come when we're nice to ourselves, not when we're mean to ourselves. Most good solutions come. Anyway, the better, like the easier ones that are a little bit more productive, I think happen when we have more of our brain on board and more of our body in the yes, go position versus the freeze scared position. So that's one thing. Yeah, I think that's actually the majority of it. And there is a sense of like that acceptance. I think Brene Brown talks a lot about the vulnerability and things of like when you're really in a rough spot, if something really happens, like being witnessed by someone that you trust can actually really help because of co-regulation, which means that our bodies help to regulate each other. So I'm freaking out. I call someone who is not freaking out. I tell them the story. They respond and are still calm. And then I have the opportunity to let my body come back to stasis, to homeostasis, to healthy regulation. So those are my two, I think, thoughts on shame. It's hard. It happens. I'm sorry. We're all worth loving ourselves.
Just a quick riff on what you just shared about how important it is to find someone to help us balance out when we're off track. Um, I had Gay and Katie Hendricks on Saturday Night Live a few weeks ago, and they've been married for 39 years, and they wrote the book Conscious Loving, and they're the real deal. They're an amazing couple, and they still love and adore each other. It's so beautiful watching them, both before we were on camera and on camera, how they still look at each other with so much love. Anyway, they had this great thing that they agreed on at the beginning of the relationship. They set up a rule. Only one person gets to go crazy at a time. And when one goes crazy, the other one's job is to get absolutely centered, and the centered one is always in charge. And it's brilliant. It's really brilliant because we're all coaches, and it's when both parties go crazy at the same time that it's really a shit show. But if you could have that, like Misha did for Trish, God bless you, Misha, you're my hero. I want to be Misha when I grow up. You both were freaking out, and then he made a choice to drop in and be present with you and let you freak out and to be there with you. And that's just so, everybody, please remember that. When someone is losing it, manage your discomfort with what's happening. Manage your discomfort with what's happening and get centered and be the hero. And you're not the hero by telling them what they're doing is wrong or even trying to fix it. You're the hero by just being present and calm. That's what Jessica was saying. That's what changed things with Trish the other day, right? Just get centered and remember those magic words. Tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me more. Okay. Trish, Viraja, one of you is up next.
You really want to make things worse? You can always put some gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. If you're into that sort of thing, Scott, I thank you for sharing that. And the thing about guilt and shame, well, I just want to touch back in on that for a second, actually, is that if you want someone to feel safe again, is to slow down, to drop in, to get really present, and to create a container of safety. Not to create a container of more upset, frustration, fiery, and also that really trying to find that place of knowing that person is having a reaction. Who's feeling the feeling? The person feeling the feeling is having the feeling, and their perspective and perception is actually creating that. So if you can not take it personally, I know that's really hard, but really just be like, oh my God, that person's having a fucking freak out. I'm just going to drop in, take a deep breath. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to create a space. Okay, what is this person? What are they experiencing? And to try your best not to make it about you. And just be like, okay, regardless of whether you're the person that triggered it or not. I'm certain. I'm mostly certain here. That's more. I'm mostly certain that the most people who are watching this are actually invested in creating better relationships, and they're not just going out and poking and abusing other people on purpose. Now, the subconscious not knowing it, that's a whole other thing. We can talk about that a little later, and maybe you should call your therapist. But there is a place where if you're here listening to this and you've made it thus far, you're probably not going. You're probably know all of this stuff or actually heard this stuff before, and maybe need some help. So call one of us if you want someone to just hold some space and help you, or teach you ways to drop in and make it safe again. And to bring it back to what Scott wanted us to talk about is how do you deal with shame and guilt? And I just wanted to read a little bit about the difference kind of between guilt and shame. So guilt is defined as an emotional state that appears when we feel we have failed to live up to the morals of ourselves and others. While shame, on the other hand, is defined as an intense feeling about the self that comes from failing to live up to your own or others' standards. So how I see shame is I feel guilty when I do something that lives outside of my values. like, oh my gosh, I hurt Scott. I hurt Scott's feelings. I didn't mean to do that. I feel guilty. I ran over the dog. Something like that. And I'm like, I know, I'm just, these are so random. I'm so sorry. This is how my brain works. So it's like, oh my God, I feel so bad. Like, I feel bad, but it's not based on who I am as a person, right? So shame often comes from the value systems that we grow up with our parents, with our society. And it's this heavy weight that we carry, like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm sexually expressive and I should carry this shame of being open and honest and vibrant about my whatever it could be. And so for me, the best way to deal with shame is deep, loving empathy.
Mm.
To really drop in. And your line, Scott, how perfectly human. Like, oh my God, I feel like I feel shame when someone else tells me something. I'm like behaving the way I behave. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm not hurting anyone. And then someone will be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that.
Mm.
Like, oh my God, was that bad? Am I a bad person? Oh my gosh, I can't believe. So in that place, it's like, oh gosh, can I take a deep breath? Can I drop into my body? Can I stop running the thoughts? Again, the self-empathy tool. Can I drop back into my chest? And what do I need right now? What, from the feelings, from the wants and needs, what am I needing right now? And what is the most self-honoring choice that I can make? Can I go take a bath and give myself like good, positive self-talk? Can I do that? Can I speak to someone about it? Can I call Viraja up and say, hey, yo, what do you have on shame?
Because we're winding down, I'm going to spotlight each person and heard wisdom from Trish. Guess what? There's more. You get more wisdom from Trish by going to her website, which is embodied-happiness.com. And look at what we see the moment we go to her website. The path to radical self-acceptance starts here. And because I work with Trish every week and I know her really well, she really does understand this. She's a brilliant coach. Embodied-happiness. Do not forget the dash. I have forgotten the dash a couple times when I'm trying to pull up the website and I get this like error. So embodied-happiness.com. And really, Trish is a brilliant coach. And so that's how you find out more about her. So I think we'll go to Jessica next, and then we'll go to Viraja. And I've got your websites all pulled up, so we're going to get to do that thing. Tell us a little bit more about your class tomorrow and a little bit more. Somebody had asked about brain spotting. So, yeah.
Yeah. So the class tomorrow is on, oh my God, this happened last week too. What am I teaching the class on tomorrow?
Emotional resilience.
Emotional resilience. Yes. And then, you should come. It's going to be awesome. I worked on it all day today. I'm very excited about it. So basically, even if I couldn't remember the name, basically the idea is that we can make more room for ourselves to experience the good things in life. And there's some really simple tools that we can do that have to do with that radical self-acceptance in order to be more present and choose from that centered place. So I hope that you come tomorrow. I am actually very excited about it. So that's the first bit. The second bit is I do something called brain spotting. Somatic mindfulness process. It's incredible. I love it because I'm a pretty goal-oriented person, and it's the most effective therapy that I know about for releasing past trauma from the brain. I've had really amazing results with it, and I really love doing it on my clients because, like I said, I like to see their lives change quickly in ways that they want to, change. So you can go to my website. It's just my name, jessicaosterday.com. You scroll to the bottom. There's this really easy a contact form that you can plug your information into, or you can click the button that says free discovery session, and it takes you to a page where you can schedule a free 20-minute session with me. So I'm super passionate about healing and about existing and integrating. So yeah, I'd love to share. I love to share information about this stuff. It makes me really happy.
So I am on your website right now, and you can see right there,
Okay.
discovery session.
Yeah, super
It's,
easy.
it's really easy.
Yeah.
Jessica Osterday, JESSICAOSTERDAY.
Yeah.
JessicaOsterday.com. And I want to say for a minute, as I mentioned earlier in the show, I have been getting brain spotting from Jessica. And she is so nurturing. It's like there's a practice that she takes one through to get to go down into the cellar of, go down into the wine cellar of my brain and see what's down there. But you hold such a nurturing space. You really do. You just, and I'd be like, I'm looking at all the stuff. Where's my stuff? And then I'd look at her and she'd be going, oh, I love you. It's okay. I'll go back and, so she really holds just a beautiful, beautiful sacred space. So thank
Thanks,
you.
Scott.
Absolutely.
Wait, what did you look like again? What were you doing? So basically, the process of brain spotting is that we turn you into a baby dinosaur, and then we go from there. It's a very somatic experience.
Well, it's funny because I've done it with you several times. The last one was a hard one because I wanted to keep your stuff,
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that painful, by the way. I want to say
No, and really our bodies are so amazing because we open at the rate that we're meant to open. I really trust that, and I really trust my clients. And if stuff is hard, like if they're harder places, we can always go in through resourcing as well. So it's very powerful.
Powerful, highly recommended, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you tomorrow for her class.
Thank you.
Viraja, hey, it's been so good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's been really wonderful to be here. I've missed co-teaching with you, Scott.
Yeah, let's do this more often.
Definitely.
I love that idea. Actually, Viraja was at Skywood Temple where we were doing Love Coach Academy retreats until this thing called a pandemic hit. So definitely, hopefully by the summer, it'll be safe for us to start doing those things again. So I'm imagining a retreat featuring the three of you.
Yeah.
You're all
amazing.
Pretty awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to share that in my work, there's this real welcoming of all the different parts of who we are. And the part of me that's been coming more online and more as I've become more coherent and integrated, being in the world as a leader, as a woman, as also a mother, a partner, a daughter, a friend, a community member. It's like there's this part that I always just felt very like safe and seen and welcomed with you, Scott. And I've just gone through this quantum leaps of healing and growth around that within myself. And I'm just delighted to be able to be birthing this new version of my work in the world and to be doing that with you. It's so fantastic.
Yeah. And I'm going to pull up your website right now. It's so funny. She talks about welcoming. Look at how welcoming she is. I love that image of you. It's like, oh yeah, there she is. She's welcoming us into her temple of wisdom.
Yes. And right there, that big the purple button is a free gift that actually addresses a lot of the things that we were talking about. It's a blend of embodiment practices and meditation practices. It's a free gift called a Fresh Start 20-minute audio. So if you wanted to click on that, go ahead and fill that out. You'll get it zipped over to you to use when and where and how you want. yeah, it's an integration of different ancient and modern practices, and really honoring that we are all of it, our body, our heart, our mind, and our spirit.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome, Scott. It's going to take you through some wonderful other pages there. You get to download it. And before you go, you can let me know which parts about your relating are important to you right now. Because I have my integrated practice. I'm doing an offering for women as well right now. That is a 6-month cohort, Awaken Love cohort, where we have the intimacy of a small group, 24 women. And we're going to be working these different root flows, ourself to ourself, to each other, to the greater universe, and accessing where we maybe have shut down or blocked or forgotten our own light, our own power, our own love, and using a variety of techniques. I'll be teaching. I'll have some guest teachers that come in as well. And it's, just really meeting our need for the reflection, the seeing, the reminding, and the remembering of who we are. And then also the space really to be held for us to have that new way of being and create the new patterns, and then be able to live and lead in the world from there.
Wow, beautiful. Her website is receivemorelove.com. And isn't that what we all want? We all want to receive more love. So what a great name for a website, and how perfect for you. So receivemorelove.com. Going to come back to gallery view. Somebody asked if brain spotting can be done on Zoom, and the answer is yes. I've been doing my brain spotting sessions with Jessica on Zoom, but she's still right there, right on Zoom, holding space. So, and I think really all of us, I'm not taking on new clients at this time, but I do all of my work on Zoom. We pretty much all do. We're living in a Zoom world these days. So I want to thank everybody for watching. One last thing, just want to remind people that tomorrow night is Saturday Night Alive for the Global Peace Tribe. And we've got a really wonderful show. Once every 3 months, we collaborate with the Global Coherence Pulse. It's this group of remarkable leaders and teachers. And we've got Greg Braden live is going to be with us. Greg is a remarkable person. If you don't know him, he's really quite amazing. We've got Jess Magic and Elijah Ray and Teresa Collins and Wendy Grace. And as always, wonderful music. So definitely join us, 6 o'clock Pacific time, 9 o'clock Eastern. And you can register by going to globalpeacetribe.com. globalpeacetribe.com. We had Trish on the show last week. We're going to have Viraja on the show on March the 6th. And we got to get Jessica on next. That's Jessica. Jessica, your time is coming. So anyway, also I want to acknowledge that the majority of people that are going to watch the show are watching the replay. So even those of you watching the replay, still give us your thoughts, your comments. It pops up, and I periodically go back and I take a look and see what people have to say. And thank you everybody who has watched and comments. And ladies, I am honored to have spent this time with you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your love. Thank you for being who you are, and more to come. And hopefully we'll see many of you tomorrow morning for Jessica's class. All right. Take care, everybody. God's bless.
Thank you so much. Mwah. To more love.
More love, absolutely.
Yes.